wanna say hi.
Okay, Fifi, you can say hi.
Hi.
Hello, ni hao, xin zhao, and whatever else your greeting of choice may be from a cooler September day than most in Haiphong, Vietnam. By cooler than most, I mean that it's only 29 degrees right now, though this doesn't mean that autumn is here, as we'll be back above 30 by the end of the week. Now, I am by nature a pasty boy from the north of England. I do not play well with the sun, and yet I live in a country that generally, for me, feels like an oven. So, before the summer does finally die a welcome death, I wanted to make a video about how I've been trying to handle this hot, humid hell. Let's start with the unpleasant truth. Heat and humidity suck, and nothing I can do is going to make running in the heat and humidity not suck. Unless you can lock yourself away in an air-conditioned room, in which case, one, I envy you because I can't, and two, you're not technically running in the heat and humidity anymore. There is no way that you can get through summer in a place like this unscathed. The best I can hope for is to maybe make it suck, I don't know, just over 2/3 as much as it otherwise would, to take something awful and make it merely unpleasant. And I'm not saying this to be a downer, I'm saying it because if you can't embrace and accept that fact, then you're putting yourself in line for a whole world of pain and frustration. Best post-run cool down, nice hot cup of tea. I've stopped measuring my targets, progress, achievements, whatever, in terms of distance. My body doesn't understand distance, it understands time and intensity. It's just a simple fact that we run slower in the heat for the same level of effort. But I'm a big fan of setting myself targets and planning my runs. So what do I do instead? Simple, really. I base my runs on exactly what I just said, time and intensity. In happier, colder times, I might be looking at doing my steadier Zone 2 base miles at close to 5 minutes per kilometre. For that sort of run, I might typically aim to run for about 60 or 70 minutes, which at that pace would be about 12 to 14 kilometres. At the height of summer, that same level of effort and fatigue might require me to run at somewhere closer to 6 minutes per kilometre. So if I target the same distance, I'm going to be running 12 to 14 minutes longer. I'd basically be lengthening each workout by 20% and thereby significantly increasing my load. And so what I've been doing instead all summer is trying to match my effort and heart rate and go for that same 60 to 70 minutes and try not to really focus on exactly how much distance I managed to cover in that time. Because in short, trying to match mileage is possibly going to lead to overtraining, probably going to end in disappointment, and almost certainly going to build to a deep sense of frustration and disappointment that is going to negatively impact my enjoyment of running over the long term. Naturally, the same holds true for pace. I'm lowering my mileage expectations or ignoring mileage completely because I need to slow down to maintain the same level of effort. Conditions change daily, and small changes make big differences when you're operating in serious heat. So target paces can become more of an obstacle than a helpful guide. That's why I'm mostly ignoring my paces in the heat and doing my best to go off effort. And I also try to err on the slow side of caution, knowing how quickly fatigue can ramp up in these conditions. I find heart rate fairly reliable when it comes to judging paces, although this can be difficult over shorter distances like intervals or speed reps, where a gradual increase in heart rate is often too slow to provide a useful gauge. That's where getting used to what different efforts feel like really comes in clutch. In fact, when it comes to faster running, I do less of it in general during the summer. In cooler conditions, you can easily rest between sets or intervals. But in the heat, and especially high humidity, you're on an irreversible overheating countdown. I feel like the fatigue to stimulus ratio for speed work and VO2 max, or speed endurance, gets so out of balance that it's just not worth running hard. It drains your body so much more. Because of this, I haven't run faster than about half marathon pace for any significant workout since summer began. And I think that's a practice I'll almost certainly stick to in future years. Going back to that overheating countdown I just mentioned, I find it also stops me running long. I think the last 3 runs of over 20 kilometers that I've done were all trail races, and that's 3 in the last 6 months. I haven't run a real long run in training all summer. That doesn't mean I can't get in high mileage though. Well, high levels of time on feet. It just means I have to split my runs up and do more doubles. During peak marathon training in Shanghai in the winter, I used to run about 9 or 10 times a week for 10 to 12 hours in total. Whereas this summer, at least when things are going well, that could be more like 11 or even 12 times a week for a total of 8 to 10 hours. I still think doing long runs is the best option, but if you struggle to get them in, then running more doubles is probably the next best thing. In addition to coping with the heat, there are a few ways to reduce it or partially avoid it. The most obvious of these is to run in climate-controlled conditions. I said earlier that I can't lock myself in an air-conditioned room and run, but I do at least have my own treadmill at home, which I can set up in the shade with fans blowing on me while I work out. If we do ever move to a bigger house, hopefully I can claim a room for myself so I can use it as a home gym and live the dream of shutting out the summer. But until then, this is still a big improvement to running outside. Another option would be finding a nearby gym with air conditioning, which is basically what I had with the gym at work when I was living in Shanghai. When I was there, I made sure to do all of my harder sessions and as many of my easier sessions as I could on the treadmills at work. This also makes it a lot easier to have plenty of water on hand without having to lug it around with me as I run.
Hi.
Another form of climate control is altering when I choose to run.
A climbing mushroom.
A lot of people like to get up early in the morning and run during the coolest part of the day. Personally, I prefer running in the evening because while it may be a degree or 2 hotter, there's no sun beating down from above, and I find that makes it far more comfortable.
One by one, more videos.
I've tried getting up to run in the morning before, but what with how early my wife goes to work and how I need to be back in time to get kiddo ready for school, right now I would have to get up so stupidly early that it would have a really significant impact on my sleep, and therefore my recovery, and therefore my performance. And so personally, I find running in the evening to be vastly preferable. This also allows me to take Fifi out for the ride, which he seems to enjoy these days, and it gives my missus time to relax on her own. So it's yeah, a bit of a win-win for everyone. Where do you want to go, Fifi? The next thing that I would recommend keeping in mind for summer running is flexibility. I'm sure many of us are used to following training plans where we have our mileage and our workouts planned out weeks, if not months in advance. Every Tuesday I'm going to run a threshold run, every Thursday I'm going to do speed work, and every Saturday or Sunday I'm going to do a long run. And that's fine for the autumn, winter and spring. After all, when it's 8 degrees one day and 12 degrees the next, it doesn't really make that much of a difference what day you do what sort of a run on. But when that becomes 28 degrees one day and 32 the next, well, then it starts to make a difference. Take today, for example. As recently as a few days ago, I was planning to do a threshold interval session on the treadmill at home, with both of my fans turned up to full blast. But then a storm front has suddenly rolled in and the weather has dropped. And at least for a few days, it's gone from temperatures in the mid-30s down to, I think it might be as low as 27 degrees right now. And so while I could follow my original plan and do a threshold run, I'm honestly not sure that would be the best use of this wonderful weather. The thing I've been struggling most with since pretty much the beginning of spring is distance. I really can't remember the last time when I ran further than about 14 kilometers in a single run. And so while I can adjust pace and intensity and incline to get a decent threshold workout even in the heat, the one thing I really haven't been able to adjust for is trying to go long. And that's where flexibility comes in. Screw the plan, adapt to conditions, and make hay while the sun doesn't shine. And lastly, before I go, if you happen to have recently moved to somewhere hot and humid, or you've only recently started running and are currently enduring your first summer, just know that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and no matter how slow and unfit you feel right now, when the temperatures do finally cool down, I always end up discovering a depth of fitness that I find truly shocking, in the most pleasant way possible. The post-summer fitness epiphany is honestly one of the greatest feelings that exists, so just stick with it.
Goodbye.